All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. It is so nice to see everybody already chiming in the chat, saying hello, where you're from. Please, if you're kind of new to our CEUs, do make sure that you comment in the chat. That is one of the ways that we prove that you've been here and that you've participated in the entire hour. And I just realized I've got my hairdo in still from my school that I was at this morning. So anyway, please just say hello. Feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation, participate. We'll do our best job to answer them all. At the 50-minute mark, you're welcome to fill out the CEU form, which you're going to find in the PDF that we provide, which is in the green button under Katy and I. Our form of secret code words is where that form is within the PDF. So please make sure that you locate that somewhere during the presentation so that you know where it is. And we are so excited today to talk about assent and assent withdrawal. And as usual, as most people who've been hanging out with us, Katy and I, for I think it's actually close to a year now that we've been doing Crowdcast, which I'm so excited. I'm going to have to look at the actual date. But I'm going to share my screen, and I have, of course, kind of prepared too much information for today, but that's okay. More information is better than less. So we are going to jump in and do our quick loop around our shared purpose matrix. And our shared purpose today is really talking about individuals clearly opting out, right? When the individual is clearly opting out of treatment, they might even opt out of the entire treatment context. What are our options as interventionists? Are we kind of going for compliance? Are we looking for contacting those values? Oh, and Megan, sometimes you have to kind of go out and come back in order. Sometimes Crowdcast kind of glitches a little bit. So hopefully you could hear me saying that. So if we start with kind of our quick loop around the matrix, who or what is important to you in our shared purpose today? And I'm going to start us off. I'm going to say the individuals we work with. I'm also going to say parents, other caregivers, teachers, caregivers, funders. Funders are important to me in this situation. Our science. Are other people able to see? I think
I got you just fine.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Colleagues are important. Neurodiverse, safe environments, safe and fun environments. Yes. Our staff that we work with. Yeah, all of these things are incredible. Students, families, stakeholders, teachers, parents. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, the larger community. Yes. All right. I'm going to try to be kind of fast today, even though I bet we could spend an hour just on a shared purpose matrix. What yucky stuff gets in the way? I think for me, my pendulum gets in the way. I'm like, wait a second, compliance is really important. But wait a second, so is assent withdrawal. Like sometimes I find myself getting stuck on my pendulum. I also get stuck in old rules and habits and frustration with not going fast. My treatment isn't going as fast as I want it to. I get super frustrated and also fearful. Am I doing the best job? Like start questioning. Yeah, rigidity. Not sticking to the plan. Going rogue. Right? I think that happens sometimes when we want relief, is going rogue. I don't know how to spell rogue, so there we go. All right. Yeah, look at that. Buy-in. Language barriers. That double empathy. Right? How can we see things? Oh my gosh, fear of failure. Totally. All of those things show up for sure. Following through versus reducing response effort. Oh my God. Yeah. What do I do? Yeah. Scheduled session and billable hours sometimes feels like staff, like they need to finish the session to continue. Oh my gosh. Our agenda gets in the way. Oh, now I'm typing everything I say. Sorry, guys. Yeah, cancellations. Oh my gosh. Awesome, guys. Cultural barriers. You guys are going faster than I can type. Cultural barriers. Awesome. All right. What will I see or hear people doing to get relief from that yucky stuff that shows up? Yeah, pressure from caregivers. Oh my gosh. That's a huge one too. Going rogue, I think I see a lot. The other day, one of my away moves was listening to music really loud at full volume in the car when I was feeling worried about, I was feeling really fearful actually about that caregiver piece. Like a caregiver wasn't very happy with how fast we were moving. What are some other things we might see or hear behaviors, people using to get relief from this? Oh, continuing education. Yes, that's a helpful relief move, huh? Education. Differences in beliefs for sure. Not showing up at all. Yep. Canceling, right? Venting. For sure. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Differences in values or beliefs is a huge thing that can show up and get in the way. Values or beliefs. Yeah, for sure. Oh, deep breaths. Mentorship. Yes. Yoga. I love it. Reaching out. Yeah. Sometimes I call Katy and I'm like, I just want to let you know, I'm just calling you to vent. Crying. Oh my gosh. Yeah, for sure. I've been there. Consulting with others. Love it. Meeting with staff. Sometimes putting the hammer down. I mean, I try not to do that, but it happens sometimes. Turning off. Turn off your work phone. Oh, wine. Good one. That's amazing. Awesome. All right. What behaviors will I see or hear us as a group kind of using to move towards that shared purpose, right? Like our individuals disseminating this type of science. I think a lot of our kind of away and relief moves are also some of those same towards moves. But yeah, delegating. That's a great one. Collaborating. For me, it's being willing to be uncomfortable. Willing to try something. Just being willing to give something a try. I think another huge one recently has been listening, asking questions, and hearing the answer. That, yeah, listening is just, it's just so big. Open for discussion. Yes. Flexibility. Research alternatives. Oh my, going across disciplines, right? Yeah, introspection. Yeah, listening to stakeholders, providers, for sure. Yeah, and I think going to other disciplines for research. I've been reading a lot, asking for help. These are amazing. All right. Awesome. Collaborating with other professionals. Yeah. Talk to other professions. All right. Amazing. This is an incredible kind of shared purpose matrix. I love these. It is so fun. Thank you guys for joining in. Do we think, yeah, collaboration for sure. Do we think that we are going to have a chance to notice this stuff showing up as we talk about this really important topic? And I know for me, I sure am. And yeah, Angela says looking for the best available evidence-based practice across disciplines. Man, there's so much evidence out there that we can look at that still fits. We can put it through our behavior analytic lens. All right. Awesome. Katy, are you going to have a chance to notice this stuff showing up?
Yes.
Awesome. Me too. All right. Now that we're sitting in a more flexible place, just a quick loop around the noticing grid for people who don't know our point of view within the happy medium approach. You're going to hear this language throughout the presentation. So I just want people to be slightly familiar And this is a very individualized tool. This is not society-based norms. This is individual. Yeah. And thank you for being open to discussion with clients and families, talking to clients, listening to clients. So the noticing grid, which is our point of view in the happy medium approach, we've got level 1, which is our contextually flexible level. The individual is engaging in behaviors that are contextually flexible for who they are. And that's in our what people will see column. We use objective behaviors. What does it look like when that person is contextually flexible? A level 2 is we're starting to get a little bit too big for the environment. For some individuals, that might look like they're starting to get a little bit too small. Level 3 is when you're definitely too big or clearly too small for the environment. Our kind of next column over, what will other people do? Those are our reactionary strategies. At a level 1, we're looking at what are we going to do to help that person contact joy, contact reinforcers? What are we as the interventionist going to do to support that broad repertoire of contextually flexible behaviors that we want that individual to have? At a level 2, that's where we want to respond to behaviors if they're starting to get a little bit too big, right? We don't want to get to level 3 where we're in fight, flight, freeze. Polyvagal talks about it as, I can't remember now, I'm blanking on the name, but they call it like withdrawal or something. We don't want to get there. We want to reinforce precursor behaviors. We want to teach. We want to teach. So our next column over is how do I get back to a level 1? Those are our, at a level 1, those are our reinforcement strategies. Those are our contextually flexible behaviors that we use to stay at a level 1. For me, that might be listening to music really loud in the car. It might be doing some yoga. What are you going to do to stay at a level 1? At a level 2, those are some of our replacement behaviors. What are we trying to help the individual learn to use to get back to a level 1? And then level 3, again, is that place where, hey, we just want you to stay safe. So that's a quick loop around the noticing grid, just so people have that information in your head. So first off, I went to an aquarium overnight with my child, and they brought out an animal ambassador. And the person who was, it is very SBT-esque. There's a lot of overlap, except for I'm going to go ahead and preface this right now. The SBT group is doing a beautiful presentation on the very same thing, and I was over there for an hour. If you're an SBT clinician, please make sure you go watch that recording. Even if you're not, they have some wonderful takes. And I think it's really important. I loved participating, and I wish that we had coordinated because the SBT approach for non-speaking individuals is definitely wonderful. Happy medium approach, because it targets psychological flexibility in the end, we're looking at individuals that have a bigger language repertoire for the happy medium approach. So I wanted to make that distinction. Skills-based training, Dr. Hanley's approach, practical functional assessment is the SBT. So totally, please check that out. They have a wonderful Facebook group too. There's so much information. So back to my aquarium story. They brought out this animal ambassador, and they were doing clicker training. And one of the kids asked, well, aren't you just bribing the cat? And of course I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm interested to hear this. And the trainer went into this lovely discussion about assent and really assent withdrawal in animal training. And I literally almost started crying, which is not very like me. I'm pretty thick-skinned for the most part, except for when I call Katy and I'm really upset. But, I almost started crying because I was like, I cannot believe that animal training is so far ahead of us in our quest to support humans, right? Like, and there's a pretty clear reason, right? And Dr. Josh Pritchard really pointed it out to me. He's like, what's going to happen if you try to force a lion to do something? They're going to eat you and you're going to get hurt, right? So there's like a big spot for punishment there if we force animals to comply, or we work with animals under kind of that aversive control. Right? We can't hand over hand a lion to clean up kind of toys that he's kicked around. We can't hold down an elephant so that the vet can trim their nails, right? I can't stop my dogs from, running the fence line. You can't catch a monkey in a tree to get them to come take a bath, right? Like, these are things that are actually pretty impossible to do, but we can do that with humans. And so it still happens, right? So I wanted to show you guys this quick, and we're just going to watch a few minutes of it. This is an animal. I hope, Katie, can you guys see that shift?
Yep.
Okay, great. I want you guys to just watch this for a second, right? This is really, really important stuff in terms of assent and assent withdrawal. And this is a video from 10 years ago. 10 years ago in animal training. I was looking for videos and I was like, this was 10 years ago.
Right, from training exotic animals like this bush stone curlew, a nocturnal bird of Central Australia, is the importance of giving an animal choice. Choice gives control, and control builds confidence in your animal. When you remove as much force from your repertoire as is safe for the animal and the trainer, a whole level of new reinforcers opens up to you, because the animal will always choose what behaviour is most reinforcing to it at the moment. Here we're training our bush stone curlew to go into a pet pack. Obviously, eventually the pet pack will have a door on it, but at the moment we know that the most reinforcing thing for him is to actually be able to escape the pet pack should he need to. When he goes in, he'll be given reinforcement of mouse and bugs, all those sorts of food reinforcers that he likes, but we don't want to give him a situation where he feels so threatened because he's going to be locked in the pet pack that he doesn't want to go into the pet pack even for his most favourite kinds of food. Now, at first glance, this can seem pretty counterproductive. We want him to stay in the pet pack and we are letting him come out when he wants to. How does this work? Well, he gets the choice of the reinforcer he wants. Both the food reinforcer and the chance to leave the pet pack reinforce the behaviour of staying in the pet pack. And when we give the animal this choice of which reinforcer they need at any given moment, in a pretty short time, we can't get them out of the pet pack. And this is exactly what we want. We want not only to build a behaviour, but we also want to build a level of confidence and understanding in our animal that we're never going to force them or threaten them in any way. This way we build confidence not only in the behaviour, but also we build the relationship of trust that we so desperately need when we're working free flight birds and other exotic animals in a zoological situation. Good bird. The choices that our animals make often can give us as trainers really important information as to how they are feeling about what we are asking them to do at that very moment. Here our leopard seal tells us that she's really feeling a little bit uncomfortable today, which meant that we did not take the steps we had planned to before starting the training session. While she had been going really well and hadn't balked at the transport crate as she did just then in the video for a long time, she did today, and we're all reminded that we all have bad days, even if you're a leopard seal. It's really important to remember that, just like us, animals are constantly forming emotional associations. How an animal feels about what you are asking it to do is going to make things either much harder or much easier. The foundation of feeling plays a key role in the behaviour both we and our animals perform at any moment. So going back and helping Brooke with a target stick ensured that in the next session, we were able to take our previously planned step of closing the door for just a few moments at a time while she remained relaxed and comfortable.
Awesome. All right.
Side note, Rosalie, I loved your yes dance to some of that. That's what I was laughing at. I'm like, Rosalie's into it.
I couldn't help myself. You watch that animal training video, and yes, somebody in the chat said parents would not appreciate this comparison, and I 100% agree. And I also believe that some autistics or neurodivergent individuals would not appreciate but it is the same science. And I think watching that video, I was trying so hard to be quiet and not pause and interject my things. So I interject my ideas. So I'm really glad that people did in the chat, right? We all have bad days. We need to be able to trust. We need choices that are real choices, right? And the animal training world has this down, right? 10 years ago, and probably even before that, right? Because they can't use hand over hand with animals and have it be helpful, right? So, but I think for us as clinicians, I think this animal training example, they are using applied behavior analysis just like we are. Last week, Katy and I talked about ABC Skill Access, which is an objective behavior analytic framework for really looking at individuals having different days and how we can respond differently, just like that animal trainer responded differently to that leopard seal when that leopard seal was kind of not approaching. So anyway, people can watch the rest of that video. I find watching animal training videos sometimes helpful in thinking about these things. So again, though, that is not a comparison I would make with families. Yeah, good.
But hold on, I actually would argue against, I mean, with certain families that I know who just need a really simplified version of what I'm trying to explain. I do a lot of like prefacing it with like, yes, I get it's not completely the same, but behavior is behavior, right? The same learning principles are in place. This is what and then emphasizing this is a simplified version of what we're trying to do here. I have done it with success, but you have to be careful. Yes.
Yeah. You've got to be thoughtful about the parent, right? Like, is this just like we've got to think about the human we're working with, right? We got to think about the family. So thank you for that. I appreciate you're right. Some family, there isn't ever an all or nothing in anything that we do. You're going to hear Katy and I talk about that pendulum. Sometimes I'm going to sit on the pendulum on this side and Katy's going to sit on this side. So yeah, I think that's so important. But let's kind of
Lauren just said what I was getting at. It's the same principles in science.
Yeah, exactly. You've just got to look at kind of who that is and if that's going to work for them in terms of an analogy. So for sure.
My families that have like 5 dogs that I'm like, hey, let's think about it this way. Like, you know, and then they're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And animals demonstrate it's anyway, you can get some distance too, which is a helpful kind of diffusion strategy at some times. Yeah. But yeah, just don't make like your kids like the animal, right? Like, let's not go there.
Yeah, this isn't your go-to spiel. Like,
right. It's not my first script, I guess, is where I would put that. So do we need assent, or is consent enough? Right? Is consent from a parent enough? Right? Because a lot of us work with children. A lot of us, might work with adults that aren't their own legal guardian. Do we need assent, or is consent enough? And our ethics code really clearly says that we are responsible for obtaining assent from clients when it's applicable, which I think it is applicable all the time, right? Yeah. Oh gosh, they're using language of respect and autonomy for the animal and using the information they're giving us. So we need to do that with kids. I cannot scream that loud enough, right? And these animals are not talking with us saying, I don't like this, right? The animal trainers are observing their behavior and making adjustments based on what they see. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in a DNAV frame, right? All right. So it's part of our ethical code to obtain assent from clients when applicable. And I think it's all the time, right? Like, that is what we need to be doing. So if we define compliance assent and assent withdrawal, this is how I defined it. And actually, assent is part of our ethical code. And thanks, Katy. Katy's noticing that I'm having a hard time shifting my attention between the presentation and the chat. So she's going to take over for me. So assent is actually defined in our ethical code. So the way that I defined compliance, which is just from like Webster Dictionary, the act or process of complying to a desired demand, proposal, or regime, or to coercion, right? We hear a lot from the autistic adult population about coercion, about reinforcement being a little coercive. I also think about compliance along the lines of kind of aversive control. Our ethical code describes assent as a vocal or non-vocal verbal behavior that can be taken to indicate willingness to participate in research or behavioral services by an individual who cannot provide informed consent because of their age or intellectual impairments, or because they're neurodiverse. Assent may be required by a research review committee or a service organization. So anyway, there's our definition for assent. There's our definition. Assent withdrawal is, in my word, when I put this together, any vocal or non-vocal behavior that indicates non-willingness to participate, right? So avoidance, escape, that's averse. I'm crouching down. I'm not approaching what you're presenting. I'm trying to redirect you. It's coerced participation. So that is the way that I kind of define compliance, assent withdrawal. And then for people who've been hanging out with us for a long time, you know that we have pendulums everywhere, right? So here comes another pendulum, right? So assent withdrawal, right? That's one side, that's one pillar. And then we've got compliance on the other side of that, right? There isn't all or nothing, right? It isn't we only work with assent withdrawal. There are times in life that we have to be compliant individuals, right? Like if I don't comply with a police officer who's pulling me over for speeding, which I regularly do when I don't see them in my presence, I need to comply with their directions in order to stay safe as a human. My advisor kind of helps me with that. But then there's other times where, maybe I do not want to go to the racetrack with my husband to test his new something he put on his car, right? I can withdraw my assent for that. But we've got to find this happy medium spot. We've got to find that spot that works for the individual in front of us based on the behaviors they're presenting and the context, right? We've got to take all of those things into consideration. And their safety, of course, too. Compliance is part of life sometimes, too. So you're going to hear about that pendulum throughout. All right. So objective behaviors associated with assent withdrawal. These are just kind of a list. These are as many behaviors as a human can produce or animals can produce, as we saw. So they have to be individualized, right? This isn't an exhaustive list, but some obvious active assent withdrawals. Right. Yeah, we can't let you run into the street, right? We cannot. We can't let you lay down and play Play-Doh in the middle of a 4-lane highway. Like there are boundaries, right? Like you can't not go to the dentist because you're afraid of the dentist, but you have a really bad toothache. Right? We can't not take you to the doctor. There are things that are necessary for us to stay functioning humans and safe, that we have to work with, but we can do some compassionate programming around that, which we'll get to in a little bit. But we've got those obvious active assent withdrawals, right? Like they can be at level 1, level 2, level 3 on the noticing grid: physical aggression, property destruction, elopement out of sight, elopement under things. I've got a little guy that likes to crawl under the lunch carts in the lunchroom, right? Throwing. I mean, we've all experienced these within treatment. Darting eyes, shaking, questioning, why am I doing this, right? Like, why are you making me do this? Why is this important? So many twice exceptional kids ask their teachers why, and the teacher sees that as an act of defiance when they really just are like, well, what is the point? I just need an answer. But that can also be assent withdrawal. So they all depend on the context, right? Delay through engagement of other activities. I'm really good at. Anything but, right? I'll do anything but that. Negotiating, purely ignoring you, right? Those are pretty obvious assent withdrawals. And then we've got some more like subtle passive assent withdrawals, which I kind of think about. These are really challenging to teach RBTs and to notice ourselves sometimes until we get a lot of multiple exemplar training with individuals, right? I've noticed I work with a set of triplets who are 21, and I've noticed for one of them, her assent withdrawal is shifting topics of conversation. So if I notice that she's shifted her topic of conversation twice, that tells me she's kind of withdrawing assent. And if I say out loud, hey, it sounds like you don't want to talk about this, I gotta, oh, thank you so much. I really didn't want to talk about this. And that's obviously a skill that we're working on, is saying, hey, I don't want to do this. I don't want to talk about this right now. But if I didn't notice that, I'm putting her in a place of complying with my topic, right? When that's very uncomfortable and she's not letting me know that. Lack of attention sometimes can be assent withdrawal, right? Fleeting attention, waiting for prompts can be an assent withdrawal, but it's kind of passive. Like, I'm just waiting. I don't really care what we're doing. This is not interesting me. I'm just waiting for you to just tell me what to do. Just hand over hand. Let's get this over with. Waiting for choices. And I think the worst or most challenging one for me is those kids that gut it out because they've been through so much treatment before that they just know, like, if I get this done, I can leave, right? They're under that aversive control. Like, escape is the only reinforcer available. If I just get this done, they'll let me out of it. And like, you literally see them get some relief after you've said, all right, we're all done. That, to me, I see that a couple of times and I'm like, oh, I've got to check in. What is this going on? And then I think there's some tricky assent that's actually assent withdrawal, like where it looks like they're like really happily engaged and like, this is fun, but really they're under aversive control, where again, they see escape as the only option. So some of those I kind of think about, like, will the individual engage in that activity or item like independently, or is it just when you present that as a task that they'll engage with it? So like, for example, if a puzzle's out on the, just out in the treatment context, will they gravitate to that? And will they do that when nobody's asking them to? Does the individual, again, gut it out until they're granted escape, right? That gut it out is so hard. Do they anxiously work hard to have it done so that they can have their alone time with their reinforcer? I think people have probably heard me talk a lot about that, where our therapy really needs to be relationship driven. So when we have these work contexts where the individual is just working, right, where they're working with, like, I don't know, they're working on whatever skills or programs they're on, and then we as the interventionist just leave them to their reinforcer time. They're just going to kind of stim out on their, electronic toy or whatnot. That's not the best kind of relationship, right? We want to be with them during the challenging times and the fun times. We want to kind of share that control with them. So really thinking about that, are they gutting it out just to get escape? Are they working hard just so that they can have their alone time? And verbally state, let's get this over with. I have had some kids be like, all right, let's just get this over with, and so just being thoughtful about those kind of tricky assent things. And Regina says, what's the difference between escape avoidant and consent withdrawal? Thinking about reinforcing behaviors inadvertently versus considering the student's assent. Yeah. And I think, Katrina says, yes, noticing precursor behaviors helps us build tolerance to a task if they have the right language to advocate for themselves. Yeah. So I for sure, I think the challenge, right? It is an escape maintained behavior, withdrawing your assent. I think we need to look at it like that, right? We are not wanting to do that. It is functioning as escape, right? We don't want to participate. And then, yes, how can we reinforce at those low level assent withdrawals? Like, when I see escape maintained behavior starting, I'm going to reinforce those. And then I, as a clinician, need to problem solve that, right? I don't think those are kind of necessarily things that we can separate out and say, this is assent withdrawal without escape, and this is an escape maintained behavior. I think they're both, right? Like, I want out of this. Let me out of this. And we want to get them. Go ahead, Katie.
Would you say that like consent withdrawal or assent withdrawal would be like more bigger picture? Like, I think about some of those kids I have where they need that escape, but then like they're going to come back and reinitiate with me, where I've had some kiddos where like once they're out, they're out. Yeah. And I have to work really, really hard to get them to engage again. Like, that seems like that consent withdrawal versus just I need like to tap out for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think with everything, there's differing degrees, right? Like, is this really, I don't want to participate in this, or this is a learned, like, I'm out, like a fear-based response, right? So for sure. Yeah. Is that what you're saying? Like, it's almost like, it's like operant conditioning versus respondent conditioning. Like, sometimes I have new clients that are scared Like I just even walk in and they're out, because they've had like stuff like that. Yeah. Hopefully that answered that question. It's challenging. So if we think about DNAB accessing psychological flexibility for us as clinicians, I'm not going to spend a ton of time kind of going over the DNAB characters. We're going to keep incorporating DNAB in. I feel like it's really critical for us as a profession to practice psychological flexibility so that we can notice what's working and what's not working for us as clinicians for the individuals we're working. But just a quick run through, the discoverer, the D in DNAB is discoverer. That's kind of our stepping out of our comfort zone, trial and error learning. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to try this and it's going to broaden our skill repertoire, or it's going to fail. And we're going to like talk to our advisor about that. Our advisor is our kind of evaluator, our judger, our inner voice, our thinking in our head. Help us stay safe, help us act in a way that's efficient so we're not always doing trial by error. Our valuer, the V in DNAB, is what we care about, right? What's important to us right now. And I think this framework is helpful to think about the individuals you work with as well as practicing psychological flexibility yourself. The noticer is noticing, body sensations showing up, emotion showing up for you, and the context around you, looking both at that self view where you're not defined by all your past behaviors, right? You can grow and improve. You can do better than you're already doing, right? And we're talking about what DNAV stands for right now. And then that social view, it helps you build those social connections, right? Those how do I predict what other people are going to do based on what I'm doing or based on the environmental context? How am I going to work together, right? And how are we connected? So that's a quick overview of DNAV. To lead into evaluating our values and biases, right? A big chunk of our ethical code really talks about cultural responsiveness, diversity, and really thinking about personal biases, challenges, being coercive, having exploitative relationships, involving clients and stakeholders, right? These are just ethical codes that we're going to talk about kind of as we go through. And then evaluating our behavior change interventions, right? Like I said up top, right? We've got this pendulum. So we can't just kind of go all assent withdrawal and be like, all right, like, yeah, we're just respite care providers, right? We can't do that. But we also don't want to pull the pendulum all the way over to the other side where it's like, you've got to do what I say and everything's under aversive control. So if we think about our values, and we're going to frame this in DNAV. So the valuer, right? That's our character that supports us in knowing kind of what's important to us and really is our guiding compass for all the behaviors we deploy. Our interventionist values and the individual values or the family values might be really different. So as an interventionist or even an RBT, right? We've got to evaluate what are our values here. Are my values in conflict with the individual I'm serving? Have I evaluated those biases that I hold around this individual and their context? Have I talked out loud about this? Katy and I were talking about this the other day. There are so many times that I make mistakes about language because of my languaging history, right? I have an individual who wants to use the pronoun they, their, them, and I struggle with that, right? But I need supportive, corrective feedback in order to shift 40 years of history of using, singular pronouns. So it's really important to talk out loud with people about these biases, about these conflicts and values, so that we can be shaped to do a better job for the individuals and the families that we serve. And then you can come to a successful and doable solution. So when you're thinking about the values of the individual and family, what is important to them about intervention? Why are they here? What makes them want to give you their assent? What makes them want to participate? Does the individual and family values align? I have run into this a lot. The child that I'm working with has very different values than the family. How do we work on that? How do we come to a shared purpose, right? Like maybe even using that shared purpose matrix that we did at the beginning. But how do we help them come together so that we're not kind of, all parent, all client, because that's going to create a clash and probably not be the most effective. But these values in assent is huge. If we as the interventionist are holding the client or the family to our values and our way of seeing, we're already in trouble in terms of assent and motivation, right? So we've got to be very thoughtful about, packing up our values. It's not that they're not important to us, but what is more important, what is a priority, is the individual values and the family values. So just a quick checkoff box there. So is my intervention based on the individual or family values, but also through my science lens, right? We can't drop everything, but we've got to put it through our science lens. Like we've got to. So our noticer. Next, we're going to kind of talk about our noticer, advisor, and discoverer, and a little bit of self and social view kind of within this assent withdrawal framework. So our noticer, right? A lot of people commented that the animal trainers were observing, right? They were looking at what that animal looked like. So our first kind of noticing moment is what does the individual look like and sound like? What is their body language? What's their verbal language? What are we seeing, right? We've got to notice that. RBTs have got to be trained to notice those things. Are they an approach? Are they not? In the rest of that animal training video, there's a really cool part where they're training a cockatoo or teal to get on a skateboard. And they talk about how at first the cockatoo's body language is away from the skateboard, and then as they get going through the training, the cockatoo's standing on it and like actually like dancing on it. It's really fun, and I think that actually might be a helpful video for RBTs to think about this. So body language, verbal language. So yeah, and Angela's in language area, try to say thank you and remind the human to keep reminding me. Yes, yeah, that is so huge, right? And seeing what there is, not what we want to see or what we've been trained to see, actual present moment awareness. Yes, be in the here and now. It makes you a better scientist. It makes you better at the science. Yes, it for sure does. I agree. If you don't have those noticing skills, I think that's why it's so critical to look through this DNAV lens, because we need these pieces as interventionists to be successful with the people we serve. So next up is the incredible 2 rule. You notice something twice, you notice approach twice, you notice assent withdrawal twice. That's an immediate moment to really stop and evaluate. And that's a helpful rule, I think, for RBTs. If you've seen this twice, or man, you've seen the same environmental conditions, same big behavior, whoa, that's assent withdrawal. We've got to let's figure this out. I enter and I see behaviors, right? Katie, we were just talking about that. Whoa, what is happening here? That 2 rule can go across so many different skill categories, but it's an important noticing tool. And then emotionality, right? Our noticer is in charge of noticing what emotions show up for us and what emotions maybe are showing up for others in the context, right? When we're talking about assent withdrawal, I think sometimes heavy emotions can show up for us as the interventionist because we've got our agenda. We want to get through this, right? We want to get through this programming. We want to help you. We want to teach you. But sometimes the best thing to do is drop our agenda and attend to the individual, which we talk a lot about in that ABC skill access one. But notice that emotionality. What is showing up for you? What is showing up for the individual? And then another important noticing moment. These aren't all exclusive. There's probably thousands of noticing things, but ranking the importance to the individual. How important is this activity to them? How much joy do they get when they are engaged in this activity? What is that body language paired with that? How valuable is this? And then how is the individual intrinsically motivated, right? Or appetitive control. We want them to want to engage in these tools. Go ahead, Katie. Were you going to say something?
Sorry, now I'm multitasking something else right now.
Oh, okay. So
I have to respond to this.
Okay. We're looking at participation. We're looking at, are they attempting things? Are they engaging, right? So all of those are important noticing moments in assent and assent withdrawal, right? So am I noticing as the interventionist, what's showing up for me? What's showing up for the individual? And then our advisor, right? That's our inner thinking. We've got kind of a not helpful, kind of impulsive, or I don't know, bullying advisor. And sometimes we've got this really helpful advisor. So we need to notice, right? We need to notice, and we need our advisor to start tracking, right? What is the workability of my intervention? Am I getting assent more than I'm getting assent withdrawal? Am I tracking the purpose of my intervention? Right? Whoa, I noticed with my 2 rule, I've gotten like assent withdrawal every time I've presented this, hopefully only 2 times. Like whose values being met through this intervention? What's going on here? Am I rigidly adhering to program regardless of the workability for the individual? Like am I excited that they're making progress? Like I actually find a lot of joy when I can take a program off of a client's data collection because they've mastered it and they've sustained, and they're 2 independents. They haven't just mastered, but they're using it for their context, right? And an important way to them. But am I just excited because I'm checking that off? Or am I excited because the learner's contacting new environments, new activities? They've developed new relationships because of the skill. Like, why am I excited about this? Why is my noticer noticing excitement? Another piece for that advisor is I know operant conditioning is at play all the time. It's still okay to allow for escape, but am I tracking that? Am I noticing that? Am I offering escape more than approach, right? What's going on here? Am I getting that assent withdrawal more than I'm getting approach? Where are we, right? It's okay to drop your agenda, attend to the person, and come back, even though we know operant conditioning is at play. I think when we have an individual who's contacting their values, we're tapping into intrinsic motivation, they are going to engage in those activities we're presenting. And that's going to replace kind of those escape maintain behaviors. It's okay to drop your agenda, I guess, is the bottom line. And then what type of control conditions am I under? That's a really important kind of advisor moment. Am I in that appetitive control where the individual is willing to work for what they're looking for? Just like they were talking about in that animal training video, right? Like escape was available, but man, being in that crate was much more reinforcing, right? That was a choice. They were working hard. They were approaching something that was scary to them. Rather than picking that bird up and putting it in the cage and waiting for it to tolerate being in there, waiting for it to calm down to come out, right? That would be aversive control. So if we're thinking advisor, right? How do I get my advisor? Am I using information I already know to keep myself and the individual safe, right? That's what our advisor job is. Are we doing what we need? And are we doing it in an efficient way, right? Are we tracking the workability of our behavior, right? That's what we're looking for. So our discoverer, I love all of these, but for assent and assent withdrawal, the discoverer is really critical, right? We've got to step into uncomfortable spaces for us as the interventionist so that we can do a little bit of trial by fire sometimes, or trial by error learning, so that we can support that individual, right? Maybe we need to present different activities. Maybe we need sensory activities. Maybe we need different things for that individual to engage in. Maybe we need tangibles, like throw some stuff out there. What is interesting to them? Toys, electronics. What happens when I do that? What happens to their motivation? Do they approach that more readily? Now that I've got some of that information, how do I rearrange my learning opportunities, right? That's a discoverer space too. Step into it. It's okay to try something new and see how it works, right? RBTs obviously need to check in with their supervisor about that, but I kind of give a little freedom in that area. I'm like, hey, if you want to try something, try it twice and talk to me about how it worked, right? Let's work together. Let's flatten that hierarchy. Try it a couple times, but then you need to check in with me. How did it go? Did you crash and burn? Did you get a better response, right? Then we can inform our advisor and we know more about that learner. What's my balance of momentum to intrinsic motivation? What is that balance, right? Do I need to build momentum to support assent, to support that approach? Is the individual intrinsically motivated to go there? And how will they approach, right? That's huge. So in our discoverer type stuff, am I within my competencies? That's number one. Number two, it's okay to step outside your comfort zone, right? Apply the science in a different way for different individuals, right? We aren't robots, right? We are all very different. We value different things. There's different balances of kind of motivation that we need. So it's okay to apply this differently. That's okay. And we want to learn. We want to step out of our comfort zone to learn about the individual, learn about their context and how it works for them. So I know for people that have never heard about DNAV, that was probably like, I don't know, probably way overwhelming. And I apologize for that, but I feel like this is the best framework to come at this. And if you want to learn more, DNAV International, they actually just launched their brand new website and it is incredible. I love DNAV. So I would go check it out. All right. Oh my gosh, I think I'm going to do okay with this. So I think I'm going to do okay with getting through some of the, most of the content. All right. So our decision tree, when assent withdrawal occurs, right? We need to have some form of flexible decision tree. Oh, thank you, Karen. I appreciate that, posting that in there. DNAV is one of my favorite frameworks. I work it in with the happy medium approach all the time. They're very compatible. So our decision tree when assent withdrawal occurs, really this pendulum of optimal learning is important. I said you're going to hear about the noticing grid and kind of here it comes. We've got this pendulum of optimal learning where when we're at a level 1, we're sustaining contextually flexible behaviors, but we don't have a lot of learning opportunities. We don't want to be on that pole. We also don't want to be on the pole of we have too many demands, high frequency level 3 behaviors, a lot of assent withdrawal, and it's dangerous and unsafe. We want to settle where we're seeing mostly level 1 behaviors with doable learning opportunities and maybe some pops to a level 2, but we're able to get back down to a level 1 where we can continue to be engaged and learning. So this is really important with assent withdrawal, right? If your learner is withdrawing assent all the time and you're stuck over in that engaged but not learning, we've got to figure out some problem solving. If we're over in that unsafe, we've got to figure out, right? We want to be in that sweet, happy medium spot. Yeah, for a fantastic primer on DNAV, recommend the book, The Thriving Adolescent. Yeah, I agree. That book is fabulous. I also love their workbook. I used it myself and it really helped me. So important factors in this assent withdrawal. Assent withdrawal can change at any moment during a session. You could be rocking some fun activity. You got lots of learning opportunities and all of a sudden you get assent withdrawal. That's okay, right? We need to discriminate. We need to notice. William's asking, I like being able to refer to the contrast between aversive and appetitive control. Yeah, it's good for describing motivating operations, conditions for, totally. Yep. I think now I spend more time thinking about aversive control and appetitive control than I do about kind of the 4 specific, like the big 4 functions. I spend a lot of time in that, am I under aversive control, appetitive control? I spend a lot of time in that realm because aversive control is where we can look and keep going down here. Hang on, I'll get there in a second, but interventionist discrimination, right? That noticing. Do we have passive assent? Do we have active assent? What's happening there? And it often goes in a cycle, right? We've got a presentation of a condition, assents withdrawn. We've got this intervention decision tree. It really, and it determines a huge part of our outcome, right? And we've hit the 50-minute mark. So if people want to fill out the CU form and you have to run, go for it. But it often goes in that cycle, right? Like we present this, we get assent withdrawal, or we get some of those lower level escape maintain behaviors on the noticing grid at a level 2. Whew, all right, that assent's withdrawn. We've got our decision tree. Do we go with aversive control, which leads to rigid responding and insensitivity to change in the environment, besides for escape, right? That's the only one we're like, woo, we got this. The CU form is in the PDF. That's our form of kind of code words. You'll see it pretty obviously in the PDF. So, and then appetitive control is the individual's willing to work to get what they're doing. It's flexible. It's sensitive to other environmental stimuli. Like the individual's kind of tracking how it's going to work. So, and then again, we don't want to get stuck, right? We don't want to get stuck on aversive control or just appetitive control. There are times where we do need rigid responding. We do need compliance, right? So just don't get stuck. And then assent withdrawal, right? Too big, too small, undesirable behaviors. And then just right, but not encountering learning opportunities, right? That's our pendulum. So here's a little decision tree that you guys can use. And I hope that this is, the CU form it's in the green button, the PDF. I think, Katie, you got that, right? Are you typing that? So
yeah.
Awesome. All right. So if we go through, I'm going to try to make this bigger, but you guys do have this in the PDF. So, and I'll spend just a couple minutes kind of talking about it. So we're looking for that happy medium, right? We're looking for active engagement with assent. That is what we're looking for, right? This green circle is what we're going for. So we start over here at our little start flag, and we've got a change in the environment, right? That could be instructions. It could be an invitation to engage. It could be transition to work. It could be, a person enters, right? We're thinking both, operant conditioning, respondent conditioning here. So we have assent withdrawal, right? So we've got our orange side, which is our safety or our non-negotiable boundaries, right? And those are those things like health. Those are things like going to school. Although actually I have worked on that. We had a kiddo that was under heavy aversive control about going to school, and we had to back all the way up. But anyway, those are our non-negotiables, right? So we do have to hold the line on that. And we know that individual is going to get to a 3 on their noticing grid. Hopefully within the context of treatment, we can support them in only getting to a 2, or hopefully sustaining contextually flexible behaviors that they can access something else that's important to them. But in these situations, we've got to hold the line, right? But we need to do it kindly and compassionately, and that is different for each individual. Some individuals enjoy when you don't enjoy, but appreciate when you join with them during those behaviors with the eye contact. Some don't, right? This is all individual. We need to protect the individual from making mistakes, like destroying things they love, destroying property, doing things that are going to hurt themselves, right? That they later are going to have really heavy emotions show up for them. And then we need to support them in whatever way is helpful for them. And we need to talk to them about that. What is helpful for you, right? It's not our preconceived notion of what's going to help you when you're losing your mind, but what actually helps you. And then we need to support them in getting back to a 1 and engaged. And then we've got our troubleshooting, right? How do I get ahead of this safety boundary? How can I arrange the environment? What skills do I need to teach, right? What skills do I need to teach? Those are huge. So that's our one. We've got to use compliance, right? Because it's safety, it's health. It is a boundary, right? Like you cannot climb on the school roof. It's just a no. Like that's a no. I can't let you do it. It is not safe. Although I've had multiple kids on multiple roofs. Not my best finer moments. Anyway, assent withdrawal, right? Assent withdrawal happens. So we've got anything else besides a safety or a boundary issue, right? Allow for that assent withdrawal. Do you need to drop the rope? Just drop it entirely right then and there. Is the individual in a place where you can model communication? You can suggest they use communication. You can prompt for communication. Maybe your individual already has some good behaviors. I mean, some flexible behaviors that they use to withdraw their assent. Awesome. We'll take it. We'll take that. Then we move on. In that situation, we've got the individual. We've got to support them to getting back to a 1 and sustained engagement, right? And totally go guys, if you've got to go. And then for our interventionist in this situation, right? The individual, we've got to support them to get back to a 1, get them to sustain engagement again. The interventionist then has got a lot of kind of noticing and advising to do for themselves, and potentially some discovering, right? They might need to put their discoverer cape on. Anyway, there's Connect DNAV, which is for little kiddos up to 11. And they say, put on your discoverer cape, give your advisor the microphone, or put on your noticer goggles. It's pretty cute. So anyway, questions to ask yourself after that assent has been withdrawn. You've gotten that individual back to a 1, sustained engagement. Am I under aversive or repetitive control? Where am I at? Was the individual at a level 1 on their noticing grid? No, there are no secret code words. It's finding the form in the PDF is our form of secret code words. Are they having an A or a B day? Hopefully, if they're having a C day, you didn't even present anything for them to withdraw assent. But if they're having an A day or a B day, was this a good idea? Like, should I have presented this learning opportunity? Did I check in with them for their opinion? Does it matter to the individual? Is what I'm asking them to do important to them? Is it part of their value system? And then was the individual in the middle of something, covert or overt? Were they in the middle of something that was important to them? That's so critical. What's going on in the environment? Is it noisy, busy, fast? And man, I can't pay attention right now. Did I harness motivation naturally? Did I check those personal preferences? And did I check that the task was actually doable? And then how did I present it? How did I do that? And then obviously you need to develop a new plan. How am I going to change my plan? Do I need to check in with my supervisor? Is the individual back at a level 1? Are they sustaining a level 1? Those are really critical pieces. No demand should be placed if we're not at a level 1, or nothing really should be changed. That's the goal, is getting back to a level 1. Has the individual's day changed, right? Like, were they having an A day and now they're having a C day? Ooh. So has their day changed? And then, man, the next question is, should I try this again? If the answer is no, don't do it, right? Help the individual sustain a level 1, be engaged, and don't try again for today. Pre-plan, right? Let's go again for another day. We're going to try this in a better way. We're scientists, right? We manipulate variables and try to make things better. If the answer is yes, I should try it again, you're back at that kind of change in environment and you're riding that kind of cycle again. So I just find this is kind of our decision tree that we utilize, that we kind of train on. I've never actually written it out like this decision tree, but this is how kind of the RBT team within Eclipse is trained to support individuals when they withdraw their assent. Wow, look at that. All right, pretty close to right on time. But then there are some intervention tips. Here's just an outline of that ABC skill access that you heard me talking about. This is our distress tolerance hierarchy that we think about. Was that task doable? Like, did I really present that in the right way? Thanks, Katie. And then, all right, here we go. Last little spot. How do we honor assent withdrawal, but still fulfill our ethical duty to support progress, right? And man, that's a super simple thing. It's super simple. we all have got that. I think the biggest thing that I can say to kind of end this is, as soon as we make a rigid rule, we become less sensitive to the consequences around us. So staying flexible, right? This isn't super simple. I'm being super sarcastic. We need to find that sweet, happy medium spot where the individual is intrinsically motivated and doesn't need to withdraw assent. But also compliance is part of life too. So they're there. They're both there. We need to find what works for the individual in their context, how they need to be supported. And then here down at the bottom is just the happy medium approach. We've got lots of strategies for this. DNAV, if you're supporting languaging individuals, the enhanced choice model, which again goes with practical functional assessment, skills-based training with Dr. Hanley. That enhanced choice model would be my first choice for individuals that have a lower verbal repertoire or are non-speaking. And then just down here, there are just some interventionist skills, and then thinking about principles and tactics, and then also just thinking about behaviors to teach to support that assent and assent withdrawal. So that's all that. But anyway, feel free. I do have tons of research. If people want it, you're welcome to email me, and I'm happy to share that. There's just so much, because this is just like trauma-informed care in applied behavior analysis, this assent withdrawal and balancing, between assent withdrawal and compliance, it's good use of our science, right? It's very good use of our science. And I think we need to remember that this isn't anything kind of new or different, but it's how we apply it, right? Like that animal training, they've got this 10 years ago, and now we're talking about this. The PFA group, SBT group had a 2-hour thing, and now here we are having an hour thing. It's so important. Anyway, all right, Celia says, love how you're systematically teaching your staff to be effective observers so that they can take performance-based approach. Yeah, of course. We've got to let them know what's important. They know. They're kind of the experts in themselves. Oh, here, Karen, I'll throw it's just Rosalie at Eclipse Therapy. So there we go. Yeah, and don't forget, Skinner never touched his pigeons when shaping them. Yeah, it's incredible. And even a lot of Skinner stuff, I could talk about this for a couple of hours. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. But yeah, he never touched his pigeons or his rats or any of the animals. I mean, we don't want to put kids in a box either. But at the same time, right, we know our science came from that place. A lot of Skinner's writing actually is what we're talking about again now. It's really neat. So anyway, I'm going to check the questions quickly because there are a bunch that we didn't answer. Okay. Yep. We're here for an hour. Okay. Yep. This recording will be, it is all recorded so people can come back to this if you want to. And I am going to end, so I'm not just reading and hanging out with you guys. So anyway, I will answer those questions in the chat if people ask something, and we'll go from there. We'll see you guys next week. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I'm sure it will be something fun as usual. And thank you guys so much for coming in. We'll see you next time.